Hello friends, Andrea here asking if social media is a friend or a foe, or perhaps it's our frenemy. Is it working with us or against us? In my previous blog, I explored how social media is impacting people's eating habits and zeroed in on clarifying a couple of nutrition misconceptions. I also gave some guidelines as to how we can be part of the solution. This also inspired me to look more closely into the mental health impact of social media since I had come across quite a lot of articles and other references on this topic. As a result of this research, I created a lesson for Nutrition Pro Mentor members and the summary for you. So when I started reading the articles and watching the YouTube videos on the topic of how social media can affect mental health, I realized that I had also been affected by some, unbeknownst to me at the time, irresponsible social media use. You see, once upon a time, I used to live tweet. I used to tweet during presentations I attended. I would be sitting in the audience, enjoying the presentation and taking notes. Then the speaker would say something tweet-worthy, so I would be compelled to grab my iPhone and type it out, complete with the hashtag provided by the conference organizers and tagging the presenter if they were on Twitter. It would annoy me a little, if the speaker didn't provide their Twitter handle in the program or in their title slide. This meant that I had to spend some extra time searching for them on Twitter just so I could tag them. I found it great when presenters put their social media details in the footer of every slide. Then, of course, I was curious to know if others were tweeting during the conference, so I would search for other tweets with the conference hashtag. I would find the tweets from my fellow attendees, like them, retweet some of the good ones. We would all, of course, also tag the organizer to make sure we got their likes and sometimes even, what an honor, a retweet. It was a real ego boost, I gotta tell you, to be doing that. Even made you feel important. Also, once you engage with Twitter, it knows. You've awakened it and it will send you notifications whenever someone tweets about the conference, which means that you then feel the need to check it. And so that vicious cycle begins and continues. And this happens with other social media platforms too, of course. But you know what? Somewhere along the line, I realized that I was missing out. I ended up missing out on some of the nuances and even some valuable content of the presentations I half attended. Live tweeting took my attention away from the here and now of where I was. Instead of soaking in every word, writing it down, enjoying the moment, I was in a virtual world trying to make myself feel important. Ouch. That realization kind of stung. Ironically, even though I knew I was missing out, when I was dividing my attention, I didn't think it was a big deal at the time. Until I heard Amy Cuddy speak about her new book at the time, you know the one. It's called Presence. It was this presentation at the Art of Leadership conference in November 2015 that made me realize that I was not being present when I was tweeting during presentations. I was missing out. I suppose I kind of realized this before, but I believe it was this talk that really made me think about what I was doing. Now, you may or may not know this, but Amy Cuddy is the one who had that TED Talk about power posing. It was called Your Body Language May Shape Who You Are. And it was about simply doing some of these expansive poses, and that made you feel more powerful and therefore more confident. Forbes magazine recently stated that the TED Talk garnered over 46 million views and became the second most popular TED Talk in history. I put the link in the references for you. It's worth watching. Now, the TED Talk was based on a chapter of the book before the book was published, Well, the presentation I attended expanded on that. I believe that the TED Talk inspired Amy Cuddy to write the book. That's what I heard in any case. So, as I'm sitting in the audience watching and listening to Amy Cuddy speak about being present, I decided that I wanted to get the most out of these talks, which meant doing away with the distractions. So believe it or not, we can't really multitask. Our brains actually switch the attention from one thing to the other and back again. Multitasking is an illusion. So it is to our advantage to do one thing at a time and to do that one thing with our full attention. However, we are tempted all the time to divide or fracture our attention. Social media is notorious for pulling our attention away from being present with their incessant notifications. But social media platforms aren't the only culprits. Also implicated are texts, email notifications, and even phone calls on our cell phones. Gone are the days of only being interrupted by our co-workers. So let's talk some more about social media's demand on our attention, the potential mental health consequences, and how to use it responsibly. When I started researching on the topic of social media, I was interested in information about using it properly and effectively to grow a small business, and also about how to avoid it pulling you into a time vortex. But what got my attention during my research were the many articles and YouTube talks about the impact of social media on mental health. Now, before I continue, I need you to know that I'm not against social media. I'm not telling you to swear off all social media. I believe social media is here to stay, so we should learn to use it in a way that is not detrimental to our own mental health, and in a way that provides useful, positive, and inspiring information for our followers. The use of social media does not come without potential risks, and in fact, this potential for harm when engaging with social media has prompted some people to opt out of being on social media completely. In a TEDx talk by Dr. Cal Newport, which is called Quit Social Media, this millennial computer scientist, professor, and book author who never had a social media account and compares himself to a unicorn because of the unusual absence from social media for a millennial. He relays that his idealized version or vision of the future is less people on social media. He also tells us that he is okay and that he has friends despite not being on any social media platforms. Dr. Cal Newport's most recent book is called Deep Work: Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World. He refers to his book in the video because it provides more information about his counter-argument to one of the objections to quitting social media, that it's essential to success in the 21st century economy. He argues that this objection is nonsense, that what the market values is the ability to produce things that are rare and that are valuable. He says that what the market dismisses for the most part are activities that are easy to replicate and produce a small amount of value, and that social media use, in his opinion, is the epitome of an easy to reproduce activity that does not directly produce a lot of value. He says that the market will value and reward the deep, concentrated behavior to build real skills and to apply those skills to produce things that are rare and that are valuable. And that if you do this, people will find you. Now, social media can make you less able to concentrate, right? So threatening your ability to do this deep, concentrated behavior are the constant interruptions we are facing every day from social media and other notifications on our cell phones and computers. Social media is designed to be addictive, so it fragments your attention throughout the day. And the scary thing is, the more your attention is fragmented, the more you are interrupted or allow yourself to be interrupted, by social media notifications and other things that entice you to go in and check your likes and check your email and check your text and who commented on your post and so on, the higher the chance that this can permanently affect your attention span and reduce your capability for deep concentration. I hope you agree that this is a bad thing and that we want to be able to preserve our ability to concentrate, so that when it comes time to work, we can actually do one thing after another and do it fully engaged and in the most efficient way possible, which means we can get more done in less time. Okay, so there are other effects too. Social media can make you feel anxious. Apparently, there's a mismatch between the way our brains are wired and this behavior of exposing ourselves to intense stimuli throughout our day. It's like having this constant hum of anxiety in the background. And this is evidenced by the explosion in the incidences of anxiety-related disorders among college students since smartphones have become more common. Now, social media can also make you feel lonely or isolated. There is an increasing body of evidence showing that the more you use social media, the more you are likely to feel lonely or isolated. Social media use can lead you to feel inadequate. There's a correlation with increased use of social media and increased incidence of depression as well. So it can make you feel miserable. However, there are also studies showing the opposite. So, even though there are some potential and clearly documented harms to being on and using social media, I do believe there's a compromise we can reach. A way to have our social media cake and virtually eat it too. Once we realize that there is a problem with using social media too much and that there is a potential for addiction and other detrimental effects on mental health, we can take steps to minimize the impact. Awareness is the first step. A healthy measure of respect is next. And by that, I mean we should all acknowledge that the use of social media is not harmless and that we are not immune to its effect. You may be wondering what I did once I realized that because of live tweeting, I wasn't fully present. Well, I quit cold turkey for a while. I realized that there was an addictive quality to using Twitter during conferences. Now, the compromise here, for me, was to highlight in my notes some of the clever and meaningful content shared during a presentation and then tweet or share on social media during a break or at the end of the day. I believe that we can adjust how we use social media to escape the potential detrimental mental health effects. So here are my tips for safe social media use. First of all, use social media responsibly. In reality, the issue isn't so much the use of social media, but how you're using it and what you're doing with it. If you're using it for 2 hours or more a day, you are more likely to feel lonely than if you're using it for 30 minutes or less a day. That's the research. So have a reason or a goal for each time you interact with social media. Don't go on it because you're bored or because you're procrastinating about doing something else. The next thing I suggest is to do an audit. Audit how much time you're spending on social media right now and how it makes you feel. We need to monitor how much social media we take in, just like we make conscious decisions about how we eat and how much we move. For example, reflect on how your use of social media each time has made you feel, better or worse. Another thing is to social snacking. This is a new term I learned recently. Social snacking is when you scroll through posts and profiles, read other people's comments, but you don't engage. This activity seems to be something in particular that can leave people feeling lonely and frustrated because there's no interaction and there's a lot of time wasted. Also, you want to create a better online experience for yourself. Do what you must to create that better online experience. Unfriend, unfollow people who are making you feel inadequate or depressed, or are causing you to waste too much time on things that don't really interest you, or unfollow and unfriend people that you followed or friended because they followed you, or because they're a friend of a friend of a friend that you felt you should accept as a friend when they asked you. Say no. Perhaps make a list of people, businesses, companies, groups that you want to interact with and check those out separately. Don't let the homepage feed determine what you're looking at. You also want to limit your exposure. Turn off notifications or leave your smartphone in another room when you are trying to create content, or when you need to focus on something, when you need to be able to do that deep work. And this is one of the reasons I often go into a different room without my computer or cell phone, and I write longhand in a notebook or a notepad before I type something in my computer. And I do that to get away from the electronics and the potential interruptions. Schedule in time when you intentionally go into social media to interact. So schedule that time in. If you are doing research on social media, for example, you're searching for a hashtag on Twitter or a topic on LinkedIn, focus in on that and set the intention that you will not allow yourself to go on tangents or down an unrelated rabbit hole. I know there's so many interesting things that get posted. It's so easy to get pulled away. And if it still happens, don't fret. Gently pull yourself back, and it's fine. Also, if it happens that you do come across something that you're interested in, that you want to read, but it's unrelated to your present mission, open the link in another tab to read another time, or bookmark the page, and then schedule in some reading time to read that. And I also suggest that you set a time limit when you go on social media, or keep track of your time when you're on social media. You may find you need to set a timer for this because social media seems to pull you into a time warp. Before you know it, 2 hours have gone by in what seemed like 10 minutes. Also, plan to unplug at least an hour a day, at least 1 day a week. And if you can, when you go on vacation, unplug. Your brain will thank you. Now, we also want to make a conscious decision, because social media platforms can be a waste of time or a source of income, depending on how you use it and how you make use of your online time and your online presence. And there's a real cost to using social media. So when you're deciding if you should use it or not, or if you're deciding how much to use it, identify whether or not you have a significantly positive, clear benefit that can outweigh these potential, yet non-trivial harms. So social media is a tool. It's a tool. It can be used for good. Now, although social media can tear you down, it can also lift you up. Depends on how you use it, and it's all up to you. You get to decide how you use it, what shows up in your feed, how many social media platforms you're on, and so on. You choose. You also want to model good behavior online. Make your posts helpful, positive, motivating, or inspiring. Don't engage social media trolls. Unfollow, unfriend, or block. Now, if you're going to spend time on social media, let it inspire you, motivate you, make you laugh, lift you up. Perhaps start by following Nutrition Pro Mentor on Facebook and Instagram. Anyway, that's it for today. I'll see you next time.